Alright boys, welcome to what is the worst tank in War Thunder. That's right, it's the new KF-41 in the Italian tech tree. Added in an attempt by Gaijin to buff out the Pasta Army's top tier lineup, but I think I can wholeheartedly say that Gaijin have failed. This tank is absolutely hell on earth to play. I feel like putting a brad nailer on my balls and pulling the trigger, just thinking about having to play more hours of this thing. Its battle rating 10.7 in arcade, realistic and simulator, and it sits in the 7th rank of the Italian tech tree. It's 390,000 RP to unlock it, and then you have to purchase it for the cost of 1,060,000 silver lions. And it's the same price again for the expert qualification, 1,060,000 silver lions. I don't really recommend getting the expert or ace qualification for this vehicle, as it doesn't really have an impact. The ace qualification is 2,100 golden eagles, and the crew train cost is 300,000 silver lions. In terms of the rewards, we actually have fairly decent multipliers. We have a base RP multiplier of 2.38, which gives us 476%, and for our silver lion baseline it is 1.7, giving us with a premium account a silver lion modifier of 255%. So boys, what exactly makes this vehicle so bad, and should you grind it? Do any of my arguments against this vehicle have merit, or am I just coping and sieving on the internet? Well, as a little starter, a teaser should you say, the Frekia is at 10.0, which is armed with 8 spike missiles, and has a fast-firing 25mm cannon, compared to this thing, the KF-41, which has 2 spikes, and a 35mm cannon. And that's it, but it sits at battle rating 10.7 compared to the Frekia's 10.0. Why does it get that 0.7 battle rating increase? I have no idea. Anyway lads, enough of my MALDing on YouTube. Let's roll that intro, and I'll see you in the mobility section. Alright, so something that we certainly can't fault the KF-41 on is its mobility. It's incredibly nippy, owing to its 1,155 horsepower engine. This is a very powerful engine indeed for a light tank or an infantry support vehicle, and with its weight of 44 tons, its power to weight ratio of 26.3 horsepower per ton is also exceptional. This gives you very good low speed maneuverability, something which tracked vehicles usually lack. You can traverse the tank very quickly, and the acceleration also feels snappy, and it's a very enjoyable tank to drive. It's insufferable to fight with, but driving it's alright. Anyway, our top speed of 76 km per hour is also pretty good, and the reverse speed of 33 km per hour is also more than good enough for what we'll be using it for. And seeing as I can't really get kills in this thing reliably, I usually advance to the line of contact, spot an enemy tank, and then just run away, allowing my friendly MBTs to deal with them, and then coming up again and finding the next target. This isn't a very rewarding play style, and it's quite demoralizing as well, to be honest, because you're not really getting any RP, you're just kind of helping your teammates. But as we'll see shortly in the weapon section, you can't reliably kill an enemy at close range from the front. Anyway, if we take a look at the cross section here, we can see that we have a crew of 3 men, a driver in the front by himself, and then our gunner and commander located in the turret. If we take a look at the rear of the vehicle, we can see that most of the internal space is actually a void, it's just an empty space. So a sable round coming at a non-essential part of the tank is likely to cause very little damage, as it isn't going to be creating any spalling to actually cause internal damage to your crew. Also worth pointing out that the tank does have external fuel tanks mounted on the side of the vehicle. In real life, this would offer you enhanced protection to the crew, basically stopping fragments and shrapnel getting past. It's the same reason that the Abrams has fuel tanks on either side of the driver, just an additional little bit of armor protection. Doesn't really help in War Thunder, but just a cool thing I'd point out. One of the gimmicks of the KF-41 is its active protective system. Now if we take a look at this image, we can see that the sides and front and rear actually of the tank are covered in what looks to be a composite armor screen. It is technically an add-on armor package known by Rheinmetall as Strike Shield. It's kind of like a hybrid Rheinmetall created. I don't fully understand it. In War Thunder though, it works like an active protection system. So you do get enhanced protection from chemical warheads such as anti-tank guided missiles, as well as heat-of-fest rounds. But against the traditional SABO ammunition, you do not have any protection whatsoever really. Speaking of which, let's go over the actual armor values of the tank. And against a 30mm autocannon, for example we're using the Panzer's guns here, at point blank range our lower frontal plate and turret is completely penetrable, but the angling of our upper frontal plate does allow us to bounce some areas. If we take it up a gear though and go to a 30mm APDS round, we are basically penetrable everywhere from the front, but if we angle the tank slightly we can still bounce on our upper frontal plate. Again though, the turret is completely vulnerable, which houses most of your ammunition and 2 of the 3 crew members. And finally, a little bit pointless, but the 3BM60 round fired by the BVM, it can penetrate us anywhere. So the survivability of the KF-41 Lynx isn't particularly good to be honest. While you can tank some helicopter missiles, mainly due to that active protection system, you certainly aren't going to be tanking any main battle tank rounds. Like I said earlier, you're probably not going to be able to take a main battle tank on from the front unless it is at medium to long range where we can use our missiles. But as we'll see, even your missiles aren't that good. Anyway, so what is my main gripe with the KF-41? Well, it's a combination of its weapon systems and its battle rating, but let's not jump the gun too quickly. To start with, we have the same gun found on the Puma, the 30mm Mark 30-2. This has a steady fire rate and can carry 348 rounds of ammunition in total, split across 3 belts. The gun has 45 degrees of gun elevation, which is quite a bit less than what I'd imagine really, especially considering the Lynx has the infrared track system, which gives you a fire solution on low-flying helicopters and planes. 45 degrees of gun elevation is workable for helicopters, but if they fly over you or a plane's flying quite high, you just can't elevate your gun high enough to shoot at them. The 10 degrees of gun depression though is more than enough for fighting on ridgelines, and does give you the ability to go hull down. But as we saw in the armor section, you can be penetrated by 30mm APDS no matter the range really. So again, instead of holding your ground in a battle, just scout the targets and then retreat. As you'd expect for a modern vehicle, the gun is fully stabilised in both planes. To reload the belts, it is going to take you 13 seconds with a stock crew, and with an ace crew that drops down to 10 seconds. Another positive of the Lynx is its targeting speed, also known as the turret traverse rate. With a stock crew we can traverse at 42 degrees per second, and with an ace crew that increases up to 60 degrees. This allows you to rapidly get that gun on target even in tight urban areas, but as we're going to see shortly, even if you do get your gun on target, you aren't going to do shit against most main battle tanks. But before we blow our load on the ammunition, let's cover some of the gun handling stuff. So first, we do have a laser warning receiver and a laser rangefinder. This gives you warning, usually not enough warning for main battle tanks, but against stuff like helicopters which use a laser guided missile, you can use that to get into cover and save yourself a trip back to the hangar. As I said though, with the high speed of modern AP FSDS though, dodging incoming main battle tank rounds isn't really that great, but it can give you a little bit of a warning. We also have second generation thermal imaging for the gunner sight, which allows us to easily track targets and find new targets. While this is a big help, it isn't particularly rare to have second gen thermals at top tier now, but it's good to have nonetheless. So boys, let's go over some of the worst features of this tank. Well, especially for a tank that is battle rating 10.7, and that is the incredibly mediocre main gun ammunition. Our stock round is an APDS belt with 87mm of penetration. You can also carry the PMC 308. This is a shrapnel shell. It basically, you can use it to set a range with your laser rangefinder, and it will detonate at that range and shower a target with ball bearings. It's a bit of a disappointment that the Lynx doesn't get a high explosive variable time shell, as that would really allow you to target incoming planes and helicopters. And finally, we have the PMC 287. This is a SABO round, travelling at 1405 meters per second, and capable of penetrating 121mm of flat armour. But crucially, our angled penetration is pretty terrible to be honest. Only 70 degrees at 60mm inclination. This basically means unless an enemy main battle tank is side onto you, you can't really penetrate the side armour. So from the front of a main battle tank, all you can really do is aim the barrel or the gun breech and try and black them or red them. This usually doesn't work though, because low caliber Sable rounds are notorious in War Thunder for doing no damage, probably because they weigh 0.1 kilo. It's kind of like throwing a tennis ball at someone really hard. It's not going to do too much damage. But yeah, that is the major downside of the Lynx. It's just a completely lackluster gun. We then have the Spike LR2. Now, these are tandem-shaped charge warheads. They are a fire and forget infrared guided missiles. When you fire them, they essentially loft, so they go upwards and then come down on a target's weak spot. Kind of like a javelin, but not as effective. They can penetrate 700mm of flat armor and contain a warhead with the TNT equivalent of 1.27 kilos of TNT. So I said that the Spike uses an infrared seeker head. Now this is a big problem, as in order to actually get a lock, the majority of a tank has to be visible to the seeker. This means against enemies that are hull down, you will not be able to get a lock on them. This is a real shame really, as one of the major bonuses of a top-down attack missile would be the ability to fire at people that are hull down. Another major drawback is the minimum engagement distance. From my testing, I found this to be basically anybody that is 400 meters and further away, you can fire them. But inside that 400 meters, the missiles don't have enough time to loft downwards enough. This means at close range engagements, the main gun of the KF-41 doesn't have enough pen to do anything, and you also can't even use your missiles as a backup. So like the BMP-2s and the Bradleys, while they don't have particularly good guns at point blank range against main battle tanks, they at least have very high pen missiles. Well, with the KF-41 you don't have that. And that is the major downside of this tank really. It just sucks in short to medium range engagements. Even on the more rural maps, apart from the long sight lines, the tank just doesn't really have a place in War Thunder. While I appreciate Guardian trying to add more top tier vehicles to a minor nation such as Italy, I think they kind of failed with this one. It just doesn't really have a place in the game at its current battle rating of 10.7. I think that the Freccia in the Italian tech tree, which is at 10.0, which also carries Spike missiles, but gets 8 of them compared to the 2 that the Lynx can carry, I think that is a much better all-round vehicle, with the exception of the mobility of the Lynx is far superior. I think the Lynx could easily go down to 10.3, if not 10.0, where it would still be incredibly balanced and fun to play. 10.7 is far too high for this vehicle, and in its current format, I certainly would not recommend anyone grinding for this vehicle. It isn't fun to play, it isn't rewarding to play, and its battle rating of 10.7, it also doesn't have a lineup. You either have to take it up to 11.7 with the Ariettes, or just play alone at 10.7. Anyway boys, I'm not going to take up any more of your time. If you made it to the end of the video, leave a comment saying melons. And as always boys, a big thank you to all who watch. Thanks again lads, I'll see you in the next video. Hey lads, if you made it this far into the video, then thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. I have a whole load of other content on my channel, including tutorials and other vehicle reviews, so why not give them a watch, and if you like them, please do consider subscribing. Thanks again for watching though boys, I've been SAKO, and I'll see you in the next video.